Hello, and welcome to the Making It Home panel from Digital Promises at Camp Maker Learning event on November 7th, 2020. During this panel conversation, you will have the opportunity to hear from Pittsburgh educators who are continuing to provide hands-on maker learning opportunities during the continued response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Our panel members include Nina Barbuto, the executive director and founder of Assemble, a community space for arts and technology; Dr. Andre Samuel, president and CEO of the Citizen Science Lab, Pittsburgh's first community life sciences laboratory; and Catherine Vargas, assistant director of community recreation at the Department of Parks and Recreation in the city of Pittsburgh. Each of these individuals and their respective organizations are members of Remake Learning, a regional network centered around southwestern Pennsylvania that ignites engaging, relevant, and equitable learning practices in support of young people navigating rapid social and technological change. We here at Digital Promise hope you find the panel's insights to be beneficial to your practice and encourage you to connect with them to learn more about each of their programs. This is a really exciting opportunity to talk to three incredible educators from the Pittsburgh region. I think the first question that I have for our panelists is, how does your organization actualize maker learning? And that can be any of you. Feel free to hop in.
All right. Hey, everyone. I'll jump in. The Citizen Science Lab really does actualize making. And I think what's interesting is a lot of people don't realize that biology and sciences and making actually go hand in hand, right? And so many times we've had projects that involve genetic manipulation in bacteria. But when we're dealing with projects that involve honeybees, guess what we had to do, what our students had to do? They had to build a beehive, right, in order to be able to test it. We've had students that have had to build batteries out of mud and then figure out how to develop them into just straight cultural, co-culture of bacteria in that battery, and then build something that can be powered by that battery. So, a lot of times we have to figure out how to do things or solve problems in the lab. And when we don't have those tools, guess what we have to do? We have to make those tools. So it goes hand in hand. It's a perfect partnership when it comes to biology and life sciences for us.
That's it. I want to hear more about, you say batteries out of mud?
Right. Yeah. Batteries out of mud. So there's bacteria that is present in soil and sediment that actually produces electrons. And if you harvest enough of it and put a cathode and an anode in it, you can actually get electrical current out of it.
That's incredible. Thank you.
Yeah.
Catherine or Nina?
I'm going to say, well, first of all, I'm a huge fan of both what Dr. Andre Samuel does as well as Catherine Vargas. So I hope you're all ready for some excellence. And I really like what you just said there, Dr. Andre, because of the scale, because biology, you're making with your human scale, but then you have to make on a cellular scale too. Right. You're able to scale jump. With Assemble, we might not be jumping all those scales, but abstracting things so that the big idea behind Assemble is trying to build confidence through making, but so that you can put your agency or put what you want into the world. So really continuously asking that question, who made this? Why did they make this? And how can I make this too? Or regardless of what that is.
Absolutely.
Hi, everyone. My name's Catherine with the city of Pittsburgh. I also am a big fan of both the Citizen Science Lab and Assemble work. And I think one thing I want to mention is I also feel like Parks and Recreation isn't maybe a natural connection all the time for folks to maker learning. But one thing that we have been doing and have been developing and continue to do is making sure that our recreation centers and our parks, our park rangers, our team who are working in rec centers are also staying up to date with what's going on in enrichment learning and making sure that those places are serving as more than maybe what traditionally you might think would happen in a rec center. We still play basketball and still have traditional rec and access to that. But on top of that, we also run summer camps, we run after school programs, and we have been developing a greater connection to enrichment learning. And so when it comes to maker learning, one of the things that we have really been working to develop is, how do we give kids those initial tools, and how do we give our staff those initial tools that might be really simple. It might be something as simple as popsicle sticks and clips, but you can start really talking about engineering. How do we start to make sure that our team feels comfortable with these concepts, even though we're in a non-traditional sort of learning space, and then be able to have young people explore with those things. And then to Nina's point, take that energy and that exploration in their own direction and really kind of turn it into a potential, jumping off point to something that young person might find out they would love to do in the future. We do, that's, the kind of learning that we're trying to, and we have been developing within our after school and our summer camps.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Catherine. So I heard this in each of your answers, so it's actually a natural segue into the next question, which is, why is maker learning important and why should others care about it?
Oh, well, maker learning is extremely important because look, we have two other great organizations, right? Just like Nina and Catherine. And let's just say all three of us have been working together, I think, since the inception of my organization. And pretty strong partnerships, and we support each other's work because they do fabulous work, okay? So let's get that out of the way first. And it's the reason why they do fabulous work is because they understand, and we understand, the importance of maker education, how it leads to problem solving, how it leads to the building of self-confidence, just like Catherine and Nina just said, right? And we see it in our kids. They often sometimes will come in and not thinking that they can do this. And then when they see that they can do this, it's like, whoa. And then when they're able to put their own creativity and their own input into it and see this come to fruition, it's such a great self-esteem booster. But it really does help develop skills like that. It helps develop skills like teamwork and being able to work with other people. It helps you identify where your shortcomings are and identify people that can come in and help you with something that you may not be as strong in. And it really is an excellent way to sort of get all these skills going in young people, for sure.
Yeah, I'd like to chime in because that's exactly right. And as I think about how we've been trying to build it into our work, I think a big part of my role is reinforcing the importance from we're within city government. That's not necessarily what everyone, again, thinks of as the first place where this kind of investment in learning might be happening. However, our job is to continuously make sure folks know why it's important that we're investing in these places and in spaces where this work can happen. And part of transitioning, our recreation centers into places that might like after school and summer programming, that is an investment that the city's making into that work. It's also because we recognize that, kids are spending so much time in the community outside of their schools. And if we can, again, take, concepts that they might be learning during the school day and just build in that creative, space for that exploration to occur and for that hands-on learning to occur. And again, for kids to be able to take that whatever direction they want, they should have places in the community to go to do exactly that. And I think, from our perspective, it is a responsibility of, if we're saying that the city is taking care of all community residents, we got to be thinking about our youngest residents, and we got to be thinking about what access to learning they have. And, I do think a lot of it is through partnership. We don't do this work on our own. I think there's a question later about that, but it's also about access. So when I think about, our recreation centers, they are embedded within neighborhoods and communities. And we have young people who come to them. And, it's our responsibility to make sure when they come through those doors that we are doing our best to make sure that they are being equipped with the kind of experiences that are really going to help them build skills for the future for whatever it is they plan to do, and to reinforce, perhaps some of the things that they are doing during the school day, which looks very different now, which I'm sure we'll get to.
I want to echo both and saying that maker education is your opportunity to practice. And through that practice, right, you are making it your own. In school, like, you don't have time, you barely have time to talk to your friends if we were in person. But like, even now, like through virtual learning, like, yes, you're at home, but like, you might be exhausted because you have all the stuff that you're working into, you're trying to memorize, or maybe there's a project where you're able to like put it into action, but you don't have that space to be like, how do I take all these different things that I was learning about and digest them and regurgitate them in a way that makes sense to me? And that could be through a puppet show, it could be through a sewable circuit activity, or it could be, like being like, what am I gonna engineer to create a new superhero? And I think also, like, we have, thinking of sports and rec, like, we have spaces to practice how to throw a basketball, right? And how to like get that 3-pointer, but we don't have places to just practice what we've been learning outside of physical activity. And I think having especially like having spaces like the Citizen Science Lab, where like, who has all that lab equipment? That lab equipment is expensive, and if you get something in your agar and it's you could spoil your culture easily. Like, having those spaces, those third spaces outside of school, outside of home, help you to remove yourself and to really dive deeper into your thoughts and to own that learning. Though we might be a little bit more messy and have a little bit more glitter than the other spaces, it's still like,
We have glitter.
Glitter's not allowed at home, maybe. And so you're like, oh, I can be messy and find different aspects of myself through my learning.
You know what? And Nina's absolutely right. It's about letting it go, right? And it's okay to be messy. It's okay to try and try again. The more glitter, the better, right? The more slime, the better. The more paste, the more glue, the more colors, whatever. It's just letting them go free. Someone had typed in the chat something about play, and I think that is important too, right? Play, because we learn so much through play. We see that on a biological level, all across different species. And play should not stop once you get out of elementary school. Play through learning should not stop once you get out of elementary school. Learning through doing should not stop once you get out of elementary school. Hands-on should not stop. Making should not stop. The first thing people start to cut are these types of programs, because yes, the stuff that we need to carry it out is expensive. The stuff that Nina may not have genetic sequencers, right? But she's got equipment that is expensive and needs to be maintained. And you can't do hands-on without a budget that allows you to do hands-on.
Absolutely. And it's pretty incredible. And I've seen some positive feedback, and I've never thought of that analogy, Nina, that you used, in the sense that like, there are dedicated spaces for sports all over the place. Every school you go into, there's a gymnasium that has basketball courts and a closet, typically that Parks and Rec also has access to, that is for athletic competitions and athletic programs. It's incredible to think about it through that lens, and such a great justification for that. You all are really feeding my ability to transition from question to question really nicely. So I greatly appreciate that, because I heard a lot about access here, and we know the impact of COVID-19 in this year, and access to those spaces has been has made programming incredibly difficult. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you've altered your programming to allow for these opportunities to continue when access to a space may not be possible, or if it is, you have to kind of navigate that differently with all of the different safety protocols that you have to put into place.
I mean, I can jump in here. Because as soon as COVID first hit, our entire department transitioned from what we would traditionally do. Our rec centers are not open at the moment. There's a couple of reasons for that. Pittsburgh is a small city, so we did not receive any CARES Act funds. Luckily, our county was able to, which is great, and I think a lot of folks were able to get some support that way. But in terms of our revenue streams and our budget to be able to do maker learning, it is tight. So everything that we've done has actually been on like a shoestring budget, a lot of creativity, a lot of, again, like how do we turn popsicle sticks and clips into like something that kids are going to have fun with at home. But that was a reality that hit us right away in terms of having to transition, what we may have had in terms of resources to be able to do programming, plus our centers not being open. But what happened, what we saw is right away, our centers became still a place where families were getting food through food lunch programs. So kids who traditionally would have received lunch during the school day, now out of school, would be able to come to our centers to get that in a grab and go style. What we ended up doing rather quickly, we have a community enrichment team on our Parks and Recs team, and we put together, I brought a couple of little these little activity kits. You can see it says City Camp at Home. So it was our attempt to still do camp, but take it home, have parents be able to take it home with them. So what we ended up doing is, we took things as simple as this is a, roll, a paper towel roll cut in half that will turn into a kaleidoscope. We took activities like that. We packaged a week's worth of activities, and every week for 6 weeks, we got 500 of these out to Pittsburgh kids. We learned a lot from that experience. The other thing I'll say is everything came with like a little booklet that actually, our team put together that would walk through the science concepts. So this is Space Station Pittsburgh. You can see that this little Katerina, she was your guide all 6 weeks, and every week there was a different booklet that kids could color, they could play with, but then they could also read with their parent, and it would walk them through the various activities that they did. So we put this together. Someone asked about budget. We had some existing resources because we do something called the art cart. Usually we're out in the park with a bunch of supplies like this, and kids are just doing stuff like making with art. But when we ran our numbers at the end, each kid in terms of what we spent came to $7.50 a kid, which is pretty amazing. And it taught us that we could do something really significant. Families loved it on a pretty tight budget. So something that I'll send out to you all that you can have is sort of a guide that kind of shows you what sort of activities we put together. I think helpful for anyone to be able to utilize in their own programming. And then the last thing I'll just quickly mention is now that we're in after school, we have transitioned from that model, which was a little bit more arts based, to something we're calling Kid Smart Club. And Kid Smart is very much more focused on STEM intentionally. So we were able to kind of take what we learned over the summertime and start to put a little bit more curriculum to what we were doing. And similarly, we're watching that budget because we got till the end of this year to hopefully be able to make all of our kits. But that has been probably the biggest challenge. And then for Kid Smart, similarly, we're getting 460 out. We have about 100 pre-K learners. Those kits look a little different. And then we're doing elementary aged boxes as well. And again, we get a lot of positive feedback from parents. And for us in terms of access, we know that the young people who've been coming to grab food support from our centers are the same folks who are getting these boxes. And in some ways, for us, we think that food access and access to these, learning, all of that is just as equally important, and, helps ensure that we're serving a population of need. And like I said, they don't cost anything to the family. So. And our whole team gets together all week. We actually we assemble them hand by hand, and then they have to be quarantined for 2 days before they can go out the door. So it's a whole operation, actually.
That's great. That's great to hear, like those logistics that go along with that, because it's different than just simply being able to throw it in a bag. Like I think of like grab and goes. Like a lot of times it'll be like somebody behind a desk saying, here, 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 this all goes in the bag. Here you go. You can't really do that right now because you want to make sure that it's safe.
Yeah.
Nina or Andre?
I will say we have been doing kits, but they haven't been to that scale by any means. For our programs since April, we've been doing synchronous programming. So we took our after school and brought it to Google Hangouts, right? And we have been making monthly activity kits. So like you get all the supplies you need for the whole month. And then we either drop it off to your house, like Grubhub. Grubhub for Model Magic is what I've been saying. Or you can come and pick it up, or we'll even mail it to you. And then we do those activities throughout the month, and that is a free program. If you want it mailed to you, we ask to help with the mailing costs. But we've also transformed our Saturday Crafternoons program, which used to be a drop-in program, to be on YouTube. And I'll throw that in here. And with Saturday Crafternoons, we feature different artists, makers, technologists in the area, and sometimes beyond, and they do an activity, but it's also like learning about what that person does and learning a bit more about them. It's almost like it's now becoming more like the Mr. Rogers segment when he would meet people in his neighborhood. And then we would also put out activity kits that people can just pick up outside our front door, because so many of our kids just like walk by because we're in a storefront. And other things such as camps, we're still having folks register so that we can get them kits. But our goal is to try to figure out how we can do some in-person stuff this spring safely. It's hard because on our spot, we are below a housing place that has a lot of elderly folks, and we have to not just be considerate, like we're thinking about everyone's health, but also their health. So how does our mistakes potentially really affect our community? So we're not doing anything in person until it's a rock solid plan.
I think that's
But Dr. Andre has
Dr. Andre,
really
yeah,
great kits, I have to say.
No.
The packaging is beautiful.
Thank you. So of course we've done the same thing, right? We've adjusted and flipped to our cyber model. When the pandemic first hit, and we were understanding that a shutdown was about to happen in March, we went ahead and closed our doors for 30 days, just to take that 30 days to figure out a plan for the future. I think that one of the advantages that we had as being a science-based organization and having scientists on staff was we sort of saw this coming to a certain degree with the shutdown. And so we took that 30 days to figure out what a plan would look like until vaccine or treatment is developed. And so for the rest of the school year, we decided to create free virtual programs. And we knew that it was short notice, and so we decided to use only activities where people could get common household items if we provided a list of things, right? Because this was very early on in the shutdown. No one was really going anywhere. So we did those as after school programs and Saturday programs free for anyone who wanted to join us. And what that did was that opened us up to people outside of Pittsburgh. And so we had people who were joining us from across the country, California, New York, Arizona, and so on. And then what we did was we switched to a cyber summer camp. And so that semester allowed us to plan for the kit-based activity. And so that's what we did. We came up with packaging and branding design And then we came up with a series of kits that we could send out that would be safe enough to go out to the public. And so just like Nina, you could either come pick them up or we could ship them out to you. And then our kits, we tried to come up with things that were easy to do at home, but were very, very science-based. So, you know, our kits come like this, and they have all the supplies in it for a month to do the experiment, depending on which day of the week and which experiment you choose. But then we're also utilizing things like our 3D printers to be able to create 3D printed rockets that we can send off as kits, 3D printed electrophoresis kits that you can do at home and build your own electrophoresis kit. And so things of that nature are the things that we're really trying to create and put together for students to be able to still do the fun hands-on experiments at home. And then our instructors will guide them through the experiments, and they have 2 options a day, you know, because not all of our kids are morning kids, and some of them tend to be afternoon kids. So we offer the same session twice a day so that they have that option. And so that's where we're going now. And then we've also decided to make sure that we take care of our community. So we've taken these kits and we've created free versions of these kits that we distribute with programs and food banks that are helping to feed the needy. And then some of those kits actually incorporate things like a DNA Twizzler activity. So they get packs of Twizzlers and marshmallows to make a DNA chain. Or we do something with the Oreo cookies where they get a little pack of Oreo cookies and they use the Oreos to make moon phases and learn the phases of the moon. And so, you know, we're really doing what we can to try to make sure that we continue education cyber for everybody, just like Nina and Catherine have been doing. Absolutely.
I mean, the things. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. And if I could just, I'll share one thing real quick if I could. I don't know if I'm allowed to share. But then we also used to do field trips, and of course field trips had to end. So we started doing and we just released our field trip in a box. And so I can put this link in the chat if anyone is interested, but this allows schools and organizations to actually participate on a group level. And again, just like the other kits that we do, we send everything that you need for your class and your students to do it with your students. And our instructors will log in through Zoom or Google Hangouts and walk your whole class through the experiment.
That's incredible. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And again, you all set me up very nicely for another question, which is you talked a lot about community and being in tune with the community and their needs and keeping them safe. So I would love to hear more about what that collaboration process looks like and sounds like. And so how do you stay connected and collaborate with the community in this work that you're all doing?
Okay, I'll go. Well, one of the ways is by doing panel discussions like this, right? For sure. But for us, it's just always making sure that we are a part of the community. It's staying active on social media and making sure that you are aware of the issues that are going on in your community and trying to be there for them when they can, right? So we knew that when COVID hit, like, all right, well, a lot of people are mobilizing to feed. We don't have the resources to feed. We're not a feeding organization, but we can continue to serve through STEM education. So what does that look like, and how do we make it not just something that we're doing, but a fabulous thing that we're doing for our community, right? And then just being plugged in with the schools and the organizations. I mean, one of the reasons why Nina and Catherine and I know each other so well is because we attend a lot of the same community meetings and we see each other and we have a lot of the same students and we get feedback from the students about those programs and we listen to those students and we know that those are phenomenal programs and those are phenomenal people that are running those programs. And you have to make sure you maintain those partnerships in order to be successful in carrying out your mission and vision, because you can't do it alone. We're a very collaborative organization. If you have the same mission and vision, to reach kids, then we will work with you, whether there's a budget or not. We try to figure out how we can do this because that's our larger goal, right? Is serving the community.
And to echo on that really quickly, when you've built trust with a student, when you've built trust with a student and you're able to then say, hey, I want to introduce you to my friend, Dr. Andre Samuels. I think you would love his program. Or, hey, I hear there's this, you have a rec center in your neighborhood, or you have to go live with your grandma or another parent or something. It's okay if you can't be here, but hey, my friend Catherine has this great program. And then being able to like introduce and to share your relationships so that the kids can find themselves in trusted hands.
Dr. Andre and Nina about what they think maybe one of the bigger maker misconceptions is.
There was a comment in the chat about technology, and I think that's something that's a constant barrier that we're actively fighting against. And it's no one's fault, but I will say there's been certain agencies or institutions that tend to have power in claiming things will put faces of people on magazines that don't represent everybody here. And a lot of the times no offense, Nick, but it's people who look like Nick. I don't see any. Do you have glasses on, Nick? No, it's typically white guys with glasses. Oh, there you go. So, and it tends to not be people who look like me, people who look like Dr. Samuel, people who look like Catherine, people who I see a lot of beautiful faces on this Zoom today, and sometimes we don't see us, right? But we are all makers, regardless if we are making with something that has a capacity to hold electricity or not. We are creating things, we are making things. If we decide to make a robot, we're making stuff. But if we decide to knit something, we're making stuff. If I'm writing a poem, I'm making stuff. If I want to write a paragraph that could be future policy, I'm making stuff. Like, the making does not stop with electronics, or it doesn't start with electronics. Technology is the stuff, this is a new media definition, but like making is the stuff that we as humans, as people make, right? And it's going to change. It's the tools, but it's also the things we do with the tools. And regardless if it's a piece of cardboard today and it's a prototype tomorrow, and maybe it's a whole another thing in the future, it can be all those things. And working from everyday resources, right? Your imagination is free. And if you can say that chair is no longer a chair, that's something else. Or that cup is no longer a cup, it's something else. Or it's on its way to becoming something else, is truly like the freedom that you're unlocking. When Dr. Samuel was talking about freedom, like this is the freedom that you're unlocking to reimagine the world of how you want it to be. I think I rambled a little bit there.
That's okay. That was
No,
I'm gonna pass it off.
clear to me.
No, I certainly have to agree. I think Nina did a great job talking about the image and how we see makers. Certainly, we don't see a lot of them like me. We certainly don't imagine biologists and scientists that look like me. And it's a testament, because when I go out and do speaking engagements for students at schools and one of the first things I hear is from our community is, man, we heard Dr. Samuel was coming, but we never thought it'd be a dude with jeans and Air Force Ones on, and a hoodie. Their misconception is very different. I can remember meeting parents for the first time in person, and they being a little shocked that Dr. Samuel was this Black man standing in front of them with a hoodie and some jeans on. So it's definitely, there are definitely misconceptions. There is representation out there across all boards, and I think that media needs to start putting those representations out there, for sure. And you know, just making sure that women and girls and men and boys and people of all ages and persuasion understand that they can do this too, that it is just not limited to one type of person or one particular group of people who seem to have this hold on everything. We are doing amazing things. Our kids are doing amazing things. Our adults are doing amazing things. And it's never too late to go out and start making. Like, it doesn't have to be about kids. Half the stuff I learned how to do at the Citizen Science Lab, I learned in my 40s. You know, like, I had no idea how to 3D print. Taught myself how to do it. So, you know, the fact that it's about image, and then making sure that everyone understands that it can be done, that this species, the human species, is something, is a species that has created amazing things, and we have the ability to continue to create amazing things. And again, like Nina said, with technology, remembering that technology does not always involve something electronic. We got to stop that, right? We got to stop that. I mean, when they came up with learning how to create fire, they used 2 sticks to rub it together. That was technology, right? When they came up with the first sort of spear to be able to hunt an animal, that was technology. There was no electricity involved. So let's make sure we understand the true definitions of these terms that we're using.
That was perfect. Thank you so much. I'm gonna put this slide back up for just a moment, because I want to make sure that we honor and thank our 3 panelists from today. We could have done an entire 2-hour panel with these 3 incredible individuals doing absolutely phenomenal work in the Southwestern Pennsylvania region. Thank you, Nina, Andre, and Catherine, for being with us this morning. I'm also seeing, for some people, this is not morning. We've got folks in Chiang Mai, Thailand, Sydney, Australia, Madrid, people all over the world hearing the amazing things happening in Pittsburgh. And we just want to thank you for sharing the incredible things that you have happening. So their contact information is on here. You can access their contact information and the organizations that they work for through the EdCamp guide. I'll make sure that we post that multiple more times throughout our session today. But I'm in awe of the work that you all are doing. So thank you for everything that you do in sharing that with us this morning.